Are you looking to expand your aesthetic practice and attract high-quality new patients? Discover the power of digital marketing in growing your practice with a personalized strategy session. Join Ryan Davies, Equa's Marketing Director, for an exclusive 90-minute meeting. Ryan and his team will invest hours prior to your session crafting a customized marketing plan tailored specifically for your practice. This invaluable opportunity comes at no cost to you, with no commitments attached. Schedule your meeting with Ryan today by visiting www.businessofesthetics.org/MSM and take the first step towards transforming your practice with the potential of digital marketing.
You're invited to join our exclusive monthly webinar brought to you by the Business of Aesthetics community. Don't let this chance slip through your fingers. Secure your spot now for a game-changing experience. Explore the details on our homepage at www.businessofesthetics.org and get set to transform your strategies.
You are listening to another episode of the Business of Aesthetic podcast series brought to you by our gold sponsor, Equa Marketing. If you would like to network and share your experience with our podcast guests and other aesthetic industry professionals, join our Facebook or LinkedIn communities by searching for Business of Aesthetics. Prepare to be inspired as we introduce Ryan Davies, an esteemed professional and seasoned digital marketing advisor at Equa.com, renowned for his expertise in sales and marketing psychology. Ryan possesses a wealth of experience collaborating with companies and political campaigns. He profoundly understands the intricacies of consumer behavior and how it influences purchasing decisions. As a certified Sandler sales and challenger expert, he brings a unique perspective, employing innovative sales techniques that drive tangible results. Without further ado, let's dive in.
Welcome to another captivating installment of the Business of Aesthetics podcast. I'm Ryan Davies, the co-host at the heart of the Business of Aesthetics community and podcast show. Before we immerse ourselves in the riches of today's episode, I want to express my profound gratitude to all of you, our incredible listeners from the United States and all corners of the globe. It's your willingness to embrace and share this podcast and your invaluable insights and experiences that have collectively transformed our community into a thriving epicenter of wisdom and innovation. Your unwavering dedication is the cornerstone of our success, and we cannot thank you enough. And today, I'm really excited to dive into our main episode. Today, we have Lisa Jenks with us discussing the art of the exit, navigating the med spa sale. Lisa, thank you so much for joining me here today and for sharing this incredible piece of wisdom with our audience.
I'm excited to be here with you, Ryan. Thanks for inviting me.
I am very excited because, as I said, when we were talking before we started recording here, we've done, a couple hundred plus episodes, almost 300 now, and I can't think of an episode that is dedicated to the exit strategy, the sale of it, and, kind of the culmination of the success that's happened. So I know that you had started Genesis Med Spa back in 2007 as the owner and medical director, and it has really flourished into this prominent establishment, 10 treatment rooms, earning acclaim through a number of Best of awards within Colorado Springs. And the spa has been honored 3 times with the Better Business Bureau's prestigious Excellence in Customer Service Award. Really a testament to your success, your keen business acumen, and your leadership in the aesthetics industry. So I would love to kind of dive in a little bit more. Tell us a little bit more about your journey with Genesis Med Spa, and I guess leading up to the decision to finally make that decision that it was time to sell.
Well, let's see. I started life as a emergency room doctor, which I loved. But decades ago, when baby number 3 came along and their dad was also a physician, life got a little too complicated. And so I went home full time for a few years. And then, as you say, opened Genesis in 2007. I discovered aesthetic medicine sort of by accident. It certainly was not around when I was doing any of my formal training, but love the idea of re-entering the workforce in medicine, but not in traditional medicine. I love the idea of owning my own business, of having say over my own hours and things like that. I will tell you, the first 3.5 years were really, really scary. Small businesses don't come out of the gate making money. And I was in the red for about 3.5 years. Sometime toward the end of year 3, started to break even. By year 4, was paying myself a small salary, and then it took off and grew from there. My original location was 4 treatment rooms. 5 years later, moved into a 7 treatment room facility. A few years after that, added 3 more treatment rooms. So as you say, I'm up to 10 treatment rooms. And then last June, I sold to a private equity firm out of New York City. I'm in Colorado Springs, and signed a contract to continue working part-time for them for 2 years, both as a provider doing injections mostly, and also as medical director.
Amazing. I think I'm just, like I said, I'm so excited about this because I think there's just so much to uncover here. And it goes from both the actual business side and then the personal and emotional side, and just bringing all of those together. So, what did you have any pivotal moments that kind of led you to consider an exit strategy? Were you considering and preparing an exit strategy like really early in the process, or was it sort of, as you mentioned, as things came along, it was like, okay, 3 kids, here we go. Now I'm going to start to put it together from that standpoint.
Well, a little of both. I'm will be 65 years old this summer, and so obviously have been thinking about retiring for a little bit now and how that looked. About 6 or 7 years after I opened Genesis, another physician started working part-time for me, and after a few years, she approached me wanting to buy into the practice. So originally, that was my exit plan, that she would buy me out over a period of 10 or 15 years. However, in 2020, she decided that that was not the right path for her. I bought her portion back, and that was a little disruptive to me because I thought I had my ducks in a row. I thought that I was all set, and all of a sudden I wasn't. And of course, 2020 was a slightly unusual year, anyways.
Were there any major world events that year that caused any disruption in the aesthetics industry? Right.
So my world was turned upside down. And then fall of 2022, actually several PE firms started reaching out as the PE firms started going into the aesthetic market. And I was courted by one of them pretty seriously, and decided that that was, while it perhaps was a little bit sooner than I had been planning to hand over control of the business, I also felt like it was a really good offer, and I thought it smart to go ahead and take advantage of that.
Amazing. So from that standpoint, like you said, you were getting approached and you were getting courted. I think one of the hardest things in any business exit strategy is valuation, right?
Mhm.
So how did you go about approaching valuing your med spa before the sale? Did it change at all through the process? Were there any surprises, or did you have sort of a methodical approach to going through it? And do you have any advice around how other spa owners should go about valuing their business?
So, valuing any business is based upon what's called EBITDA, which is earnings before income taxes, depreciation, and amortization. Amortization does not really have anything to do in the med spa space. So, for our purposes, it's earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation. And then each segment of business has a multiple by which that figure is multiplied to determine the value of the business. Within the med spa space right now, that's somewhere between 5 and 7. So you get your EBITDA, you multiply it by 5 to 7, and that is a rough estimate of the value of your business. My absolute advice to anybody who is considering buying is to invest in a very creative banker who can help you through this process, because there are business bankers who are trained and experienced in helping business owners to sell their businesses. And you really need to find somebody who has experience in the med spa space. For me, that meant going to Denver to hire a lawyer, which obviously isn't a big deal. We all do everything through Zoom anyways, but you've got, and these lawyers are expensive, but they get very, very creative in what that final figure is. I will also add that most of these sales are what's called cash in, cash out. So, the private equity firm paid me the amount that we had decided that the business was worth. But with that money, I was responsible for paying off any debt that the business still had. So I had a couple of devices that still had, some debt. So that was on me. They take the business completely debt free.
Amazing. And you touched on it there, having the right people and investing in the right support network. Like you said, you can get a lawyer, somebody who's an accountant, but you've got somebody with specialty in that, in this area to really build a strong support network. What other, role did your team, or did you have other advisors that came into the sales process that maybe didn't start there with you? You've already expressed the importance of surrounding yourself with the right people, the right support network, but what would be that team that you kind of build from that standpoint, that really helped you with this?
Well, I from about the first 2 or 3 years of owning Genesis, when we were running in the red and there wasn't that much income coming in, I was keeping very rudimentary books. I was paying all the bills. After about 3 years, it became too complicated. I hired an outside bookkeeper, which I highly, highly recommend. I think that it just keeps everything cleaner, decreases the possibility of any employee theft and money walking away and not finding its way to the bank and things like that. So another piece of advice is, as early as possible, to get an outside bookkeeper, a good accountant, because the cleaner your books are, the more you're going to be able to explain your financials, and the more an investment banker is going to be able to get really creative and drive up the value of your business. So besides that investment banker, a lawyer obviously needs to do and again, I think if you can find a lawyer with some experience in med spa sales, that's really important, because laws around who can own a med spa vary from state to state, and what the role of a medical director is, and so on and so forth.
Right.
So you really do need somebody who is aware of all of those issues.
Amazing. And I think, I guess from also the outside standpoint, right? You're even if you're a single owner or whatever it is, you're still not doing it alone. And I think maybe that's where we can kind of transition into not just the business preparation, but from the mental, emotional standpoint and that side of things. I'm sure you went through a roller coaster, through it off and on. But what did that look like for you in terms of building that support network and really preparing yourself from the mental standpoint for what was to come?
Well, that's a great question. And in all honesty, I'm not so sure that I was prepared, even though I thought that I was. I knew that it was going to be very hard to not be my own boss, and especially not be the boss of my baby, my business that I had grown for 17 years. And every single decision essentially had been my decision. But it has been harder than I thought, I'll be honest with you. And I just am reconciling that. Sometimes I really have to have long, hard talks with myself, reminding myself that I was not going to own the business until I was 90 years old. That's not what I wanted. And reminding myself that it is so wonderful to have the money in the bank, to have more free time now that I'm working part-time, and to not deal with the parts of ownership that I didn't like, the hiring and firing and dealing with HR issues. And so I have those long, hard talks and remind myself that overall, this has been a fabulous decision for me.
From the challenges standpoint going through it, I'm sure there's many stages to the exit strategy, and you're still even going through it, like you said, with the letting go and all of that. What are some of the challenges, maybe the biggest hurdles that you faced during the sales process that you went through this, and like how have you been overcoming them? Like, again, was it just the support network? Was it your going back and having those talks with yourself? Anything where you'd say, boy, these were big hurdles to get through?
Well, the during the actual sale process, because they first contacted me in September of 2022, the sale did not go through until early June 2023. So it was a long process. And it was a laborious process. It felt like every 30 minutes I was being asked to send more data or another form or to sign this or to get on another meeting. And there were times during that where I got very discouraged and sort of felt like throwing my hands up in the air and saying, I'm done. But I'm really glad that I did stick it through. And I think that that's a little bit on the long end of the sale for a business my size. But I do think that if I had gone into it knowing that it was going to be long and laborious and I was going to sign my name way more frequently than I thought I was going to on papers, that would have helped a little bit. And now since then, I, as I said, give myself long talks and remind myself what's been really good and positive about this on the hard days. And I also, in all honesty, Ryan, have not been shy about picking up the phone and calling the new owners and saying, hey, I just want to let you know, after my 17 years of experience, what you're implementing I think might have some problems, and here they are. And I always say to them, you're the new owners, you're the boss. You can absolutely do this, but I'm not going to sit silently and not at least share with you my experience. And that has made me feel a little bit more like I'm protecting my baby
Yeah.
and taking care of things.
I mean, even with the timeline being 17 years, you get that resonating feeling like, again, you gave birth to this,
Yes.
and now they're off into the wild and off you go, but you're still not going to just be like, all right, we'll see you and shut the door. Like, it's like, I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm going to check in on things. I'm going to
Right.
give guidance and all of that. And I think that's, again, I'm probably a really relaxing thing for you to be able to be like, okay, look, it's still my legacy. It's still, Genesis still means something to me from a brand and from an everything else standpoint. I want to make sure that what happens in
Yeah.
your client base is well taken care of, right? That
And
there's
my
no drama.
staff. I care deeply
Yeah,
about my staff.
absolutely.
And yes, both my clients and my staff, I want to still advocate for when I feel like I should.
Talk to me about that. How did it, how did you go through that, letting your staff know what was happening? Did you give them some runway to kind of go through it and emotional support through it? Or was it like hey, this has happened? I'm sure they got the vibe, like they had to know at some point, right? That it was coming with, again, how many times you were signing your names in closed door meetings and things like that. But tell us about that and navigating those waters for your staff as well that you care so deeply about.
That was really interesting because everybody on my team, my accountant, my lawyer, kept telling me the staff cannot know until the deal is done. And yes, that was very tricky because I was closing my door for meetings, and the new owners came through a couple of times for tours, and I was sending so much financial information. It did help tremendously that I had this outside bookkeeper who
Mm-hmm.
was in on that this was happening, and he could send all of the financial information without me having to ask an employee to send that. So that was helpful, but it was really, really hard to keep that secret. And the way that it happened, the three people from the private equity firm flew into town 2 days before the sale was going to be final. I took my managers out for dinner, and those three members of the team were there. We broke it to the managers. There was a lot of tears. There were a lot of questions. There was a lot of concern. The three people from the team really did such a great job of calming those concerns, of showing that they loved Genesis and had no plans to come in and make major changes or fire anybody. And so then the next morning, we had already had set up an all staff training day. The three members of the team were also there for that. But by then, the managers were on board and had calmed down emotionally about this and were liking the members of the buying team. And so then we announced it to the whole staff. And again, there was tears, there was anger, there was questions, but having the managers already have had their questions answered was super, super helpful.
That's incredible. Yeah, I mean, it's so critical, and it's got to be so tough to be able to navigate, those waters and keep focus and motivation on the growth of the practice. And like you said, you're still doing client care and staffing and everything else while still navigating all of those complexities of the sale. I know, loaded question. You've talked about it already a little bit, but how are you able to do that? How are you able to still pop out of those meetings and be like, okay, now I'm back into the owner operator standpoint, and I'm not in the, take my business hat off and put my medical director hat on, and away I go. How are you able to do that? And did it take work? Was it, did it get easier over time, I guess?
I think one of the things that made me a good ER doctor is the ability to compartmentalize. You
Yeah.
come out of one room having declared your patient dead after doing, coding them for 20 minutes, and you walk right into the next room with a 6-year-old with a little cut on her finger.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to transition. And so I've always been good at compartmentalizing. So that in and of itself was not an issue for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, you're well trained for being able to do that. That's for sure, given everything that you've done there. Dr. Jenks, tell me also, in hindsight, were there things that you wish you had known or done differently through the process? I mean, you've been smiling through the entire through our entire conversation, so I know you're obviously pleased with where you're at and what you've done and all of that. But were there a couple things that stand out, like you said, knowing the timeline, knowing, okay, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. I thought this was going to be send a few papers, sign a sheet once or twice, and it's done and dusted, I'm out of here. Were there other things that really stand out for you that you wish you would have known, or you shout from the mountaintops if you hear somebody else is like, I'm thinking about selling?
Well, this is a little bit of a detour from that particular question, but one thing that would I would advise med spa owners to do in to get ready for a potential down the road sale is to try, if at all possible, to open a second location or even a third location. I looked into that over several years and for various reasons was never able to pull it off. But your valuation goes up the more locations you have. And it can be a really, really good business decision, not even just because of the sale, because if you place two locations, say, in two very different places, you in theory could double your income and not have to come anywhere close to doubling your expenses. For example, your marketing is probably going to be the same. An office manager may need to hire an assistant if she's going to take care of two places, but you're not going to have two office managers, and so on and so forth. So you can really, really build your value if you are able to do that. Again, I was not, but in retrospect, I wish maybe I had pushed for that a little bit harder. And then, as far as the process goes, my investment banker, who also happened to be my daughter, I will give a shout out to her, who is the most amazing investment banker
That's helpful.
and
That's a
the
good
most
connection to have.
creative
Yeah.
one ever. And my lawyer, my accountant, my bookkeeper were all so, so phenomenal in guiding me through this. And other than perhaps being better prepared for the length and how long it was going to take. Other than that, I think I just really did a good job with everything.
Amazing. Um, Looking beyond now, again, now that it's kind of this is a lot of this is in the rearview mirror. We talked that you still like keep close to it, have a vested
Mhm.
interest, and have transitioned into part time. Tell us a little bit more about how your life has changed since exiting Genesis Med Spa, and what new opportunities or even challenges have kind of come up as a result of it.
So before, up until the sale, I was working 4 days a week. For the first 10 years or so of Genesis, I worked 5 days a week.
Yep.
And then I've been working 4 days a week, but basically 10-hour days. I'm still working 4 days a week, although I have a lot more flexibility and it's more like 6-hour days, which is just phenomenal for me. I love hiking, so my morning hikes are a little bit longer. I can feel as though life is a little bit more balanced if I'm just needing to run some errands or whatever I'm needing to do on a morning. I'm not spending 10 hours a day at work. So that's been really, really wonderful. I also have taken some nice trips, and that's dear to my heart. I'm a travel addict, so that's been fun, and I've been able to do that.
That's amazing. That's one of the things I want to be able to do is retire at an age where I'm still physically fit
Yeah,
enough to be able to enjoy the travel and walk places and do things and walk through various. I'm thinking of some of the trips to Europe and stuff where it's just like hills upon, or climbing stairs upon climbing stairs. I'm like, oh, I need to make sure I can still do that on the other end as well. So
exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
that's phenomenal. That's really exciting. I want to, just because you're such a key thought leader in this space too, you've got a number of years of experience in running a practice and, like you said, really building it from the ground up. How do you see the future of this industry, particularly maybe in terms of exits? Is it, private equity is really, and VCs are playing a bigger role here? Do you see more
Mhm.
small owner operators coming up and doing more niche things? What do you see kind of idea? What's your thoughts?
Well, yes, private equity is really, really interested in the med spa space right now. And I wouldn't be surprised in the next 5 to 10 years if there start to be a lot of med spas that are named the same thing all across the country. So,
Yeah.
for example, the firm that bought Genesis, I think they now have, I think, 8 or 10 med spas all
Yeah.
across the country. And at some point, all of those are going to be named the same thing, sort of like Massage Envy, so that you can go
Yeah.
anywhere in the country and know a med spa. And of course, that's a big change from right now.
Yes.
Um, I do see more and more male clients are going to be entering the aesthetic space in the next
Yeah.
5 or so years. Allergan right now is estimating that the percentage of men seeking aesthetic services is going to double in the next 5 years. It's currently nationwide at about 10% male, so going up. So I think that there's going to start being some niche med spas that cater directly towards those men in ways that we haven't been doing.
Amazing. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Those are great areas of opportunity, and I think it's going to be a great specialty for again, really good growth market. Obviously,
Mhm.
we've seen the growth in the aesthetics industry is incredible. The technology advancements are
Mhm.
just every day. There seems like there's something new coming in, so it's a really exciting place. Still a great industry, and congratulations on all of your success and your exit, and still staying close to it. Obviously, it's
Yeah.
still near and dear to your heart. So, finally, Dr. Jenks, as we wrap up here, I would love to just sort of ask one simple question: what legacy do you hope to leave behind through your experience with Genesis Med Spa and transition out of the business?
That's a great question. I would love to leave a legacy of having helped every person that has worked for me to grow and develop and to feel nurtured and loved and supported. And I would love for all of my clients to feel as though every time they walked into Genesis, they not only had a luxurious, wonderful experience, but that they felt valued and safe and loved by us.
Incredible. Looking at your reviews and testimonials, I think that that's a no-brainer. It sure looks like, loved and adored is an understatement from that side. And hearing your story of telling your team about the sale and them all breaking down in tears and, that kind of reaction also speaks for itself in terms of the number of lives that you've touched, both from the business side and from the client and patient side and everything. So for us in the audience personally, thank you so much, because this is a topic that isn't easily available, and have someone with your expertise be able to explain it to us and walk through the business, the personal, the emotional side of it all. Absolutely invaluable. So thank you so much, Dr. Lisa Jenks, for joining us today and taking us through your journey. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're so welcome. I hope you invite me back sometime.
I think that we definitely should be doing that. This was a great conversation, and I would love to continue to follow your journey and also pick more of that brain of yours on just the industry itself. So thank you so much. And I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you, and we simply can't do what we do without you. So if you like our podcast, please kindly share it with your friends and your colleagues on social media. As well as, please don't forget to leave us a review, iTunes, Google Play, wherever you're listening. It's your thoughts and your sharing of this podcast that will help other doctors and practice owners find us and bring you more incredible guests like Dr. Jenks here. Thank you again. And until we meet again, I wish you all an absolutely amazing week ahead. Thank you, and take care, everyone.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Business of Aesthetic podcast series, brought to you by our gold sponsors, Equa Marketing. Would you like to join our growing group of aesthetic industry experts and get featured on the Business of Aesthetics podcast? Or do you know someone who would love to share their strategies for growth in the aesthetic business, providing quality patient care or their clinical expertise? Head over to www.businessofesthetics.org/podcast show and apply to be featured as a guest on the show. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen. If you would like to engage with today's speakers or any of our past speakers, join our Facebook group or LinkedIn group by searching for Business of Aesthetics. Thank you and have a great day.